Hi, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Auto Heterophiles. Today, I'm here with Jeanne to talk about her experience with autogynephilia. So, thank you for coming on the pod, Jeanne.
Thank you for inviting me out of the blue. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to get a bunch of people on here. Several hundred. So, if there's any AGPs or AAPs in the audience that are considering it, just send me a message and we'll schedule it. And we can get it done. Um, so yeah, I think a good place to start might be how did you first encounter the concept of autogynephilia and how'd you feel about it?
I think some of it was from just like pretty hateful people. Like they would just call I would like see people getting called autogynephiles and I'd be like, "What is this?" And it's like, "Oh, it's something that they just use to call trans people to make them feel bad." And so I kind of had that view of it for a long time because of like the stigma. And then I started seeing the better side of it through some of my trans friends.
Yeah, how did you get over the stigma feeling?
Just kind of like having friendships with people who explained it to me basically, and they explained it from like a reasonable perspective with really good evidence statements and like anecdotes of how it wasn't what I thought it was, and it was just this thing that kind of can help explain who I am and why I am the way I am. It just kind of like something just kind of clicked after I read some of the research, and it was like, "Oh, wait. This explains this explains me so well." And in part it was because of other trans people helping me understand it. But very small amount of people.
Right. Yeah, it's currently a pretty small population of self-aware AGPs, and I would say probably even smaller among the transsexual contingent just because yeah, I feel like once if people have already transitioned and not heard about autogynephilia, they definitely don't wanna hear about it afterwards.
Yeah, I can see why that has happened. People have like transitioned and then they no longer want to worry about other stuff. They're just now living the way they want to live. So nothing else really matters to them.
Yeah,
But
like,
then
at that point, who cares what caused it, right?
as for me, I enjoy figuring stuff out and I'm still figuring myself out. So it's honestly really helped.
Mm, how, when you, like, look back on your life, what are some of the earliest signs of autogynephilia that you had?
Interestingly, I had those kinds of feelings at around 5 years old. uh, I would have dreams where I was an adult woman, and I was I was a 5-year-old boy, and I would dream about being an adult woman instead of like a 5-year-old girl, and like the dreams and all that stuff wasn't inherently sexual or anything like that, but um, oh, I don't know if you should you need to censor anything I say, um, but yeah,
You
it's
could
kind of
say it.
like uh it just caused like arousal at 5 years old, which is very abnormal. Like I've researched like all about how like that works for like very young kids, and it's just completely abnormal to have that happen as like a 5-year old. And that's like my earliest memories of how that kind of started. I have a very vivid memory, like back to around when I was 2. I kind of related to some traumatic experiences involving a forest fire. So my memory is pretty strong back then.
Was was that really confusing to have a dream of being a woman and then be aroused? Like, did you even like have any way of contextualizing those feelings?
No, I never told anyone until I was an adult. Like I never told my parents, I never told my therapist, nothing like that. I never told anybody. And it was just so hard to understand it that it's like I kind of pushed it to the back of my mind. I didn't really concern myself with it. Like I thought it was normal basically. I was very sheltered as a kid too, so that might be part of it.
Yeah, something interesting about what you described is how you said specifically the dream of was being an adult woman, which like viewed through a theoretical framework, it sounds like your sexual orientation was already pretty well developed at that point in terms of being um like oriented towards adult females.
Yeah, I can't even comprehend like how that would work. I was always like very shy with my like babysitters and stuff who were like these like college students that my parents knew. Uh I was always like embarrassed around girls, but just like the dreams, it wouldn't be anything like sexual, anything like that. It was like me in the body of an adult woman wearing clothes, not doing anything like sexual or anything like that. I even had like a driver's license with a picture of me on it. I had
Nice.
a concept of a driver's license at 5, which is kind of funny. Um, it's just like I never really understood why that could have been possible if it, and then all of a sudden I did when I found all this research and stuff. But still, there's so much I don't understand about why I felt the way I did, and so I'm constantly trying to like learn more.
Have have you seen in the have you read Anne Lawrence's book?
Yeah,
Because
I like it.
yeah, the it's a great book, and I just thought of it because there's a section in chapter 5 where she brings up those cases of transsexuals reporting childhood onset autogynephilic arousal between like ages 4 through 6, and
Yep, that's
so it's
me.
right. Yeah, that's that would be so crazy to go through. I didn't have anything resembling sexual feelings anywhere near that time.
It's kind of it's very very uncommon. Uh, as far as I can tell, the only evidence for it that's been documented is just like hormonal disorders that they've documented about it, and nothing else. But my experience just does not fit with like uh something like that. I had like a trans person who hates AGP stuff try to tell me that my experience was like, well, you just had some sort of hormonal disorder as a kid. But nope, it definitely wasn't that.
Yeah, it's I think transsexuals want to default to thinking that transgenderism it comes from a hormonal disorder because it's kind of intuitively validating in a way. Um,
Yeah, and I
if
think
it
some of it might come from that, but there's just not I don't think there's enough evidence into it to like consider it as a fact.
right, yeah. Um, how did you come across my work?
Oh, I don't really remember. I think I saw um my mutuals interacting with you, and I think that that was like during a time when I still didn't like AGP stuff very much. And so I was like bah humbug about everything. Um but then I kind of like over the I think found you like a couple years ago. But then like looking at stuff and things that you posted over the years, I was like, I owe you an apology. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Right, yeah, because I'm not hating on AGPs. I just think like
Yeah,
that, if something's real, we should be able to talk about it. And it's also like it's
yeah.
so important because transsexualism is such a consequential um, path to go down.
And one thing that like really, really woke me up to like seeing how people were like treating you and why that why you should be listened to, I think, was when you went. Well, was it like a Gen Spec conference or something? I don't
Yeah,
even remember. You went,
yeah,
you went wearing a dress, and then people flipped out for no reason. Like, it was just a total freak. People still freak out about it, and
yeah.
when I think about it, I cannot comprehend why that would happen. Uh, just from my perspective in life, because I've seen stuff like that here in my town. Like my town is like a very I don't know, pride centric town. So we have a lot of pride stuff, and I don't know, wearing like people wearing clothes that they normally, I guess, quote unquote, shouldn't wear is normal for me. Even though I never had a history of cross dressing or anything, uh, it just never bothered me personally. And so when I see these people freaking out, I was like completely aghast. And that's kind of what made me start wanting to like look at what you were saying more. Because, sometimes when people like freak out like that, usually the person they're freaking out at has something good to say.
Right, yeah. Or it says something about the people freaking out.
Yeah. And yeah, yeah, I'm just still flabbergasted by the reaction that garnered. Still, it still just bothers the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's troubling because GenSpect is supposedly for helping people that go through gender dysphoria and also the parents of people that have gender
Yeah.
dysphoria. And if the people in that scene can't be calm about autogynephilia, I just think they don't really. I think it's a prerequisite to be able to have an adult conversation about
Yes.
transsexualism to be able to talk about autogynephilia calmly.
Yes, yes. And so many people can't do that, I feel. On any side. Like, conservatives, TERFs, gender critical, like anybody, trans people too. Like it's probably mainly trans people that have a extreme negative reaction compared to like gender criticals. But it's a different sort of reaction. And people should just be able
Right.
to talk about it.
Yeah, especially if they're not demonizing it. Um,
Yes.
uh, I will say I'm probably blocked by more trans people on Twitter than on than GCs. Although since the dress controversy, I'm definitely blocked by more GCs than I used to be.
Yeah, and I think oh my gosh, I've seen people claim that you're like a self-hating trans woman or that you're trying to invade women's spaces, and I my head hurts my head.
Yeah,
Because people assume all this stuff about you just because you talk about this stuff, and it's not very helpful.
no, but
Yeah, they
I
do the
I
same
knew
for me too, so
yeah I knew going into this that I was going to be demonized and it was going to be regardless of what I actually said. Just simply for being AGP and talking about it. So it's pretty much been going according to my expectations. Although I didn't think it was gonna be GCs that got mad first. I thought it was gonna be the trans movement, but the trans movement has just like plugged their ears and tried to ignore me.
yeah, generally what a lot of like of the general populace does is they tend to want to ignore things that they don't want to talk about.
Yeah, and it's bad because if like as you've probably noticed, the autogynephilia discourse is so bad in terms of just how people demonize it, and it's not going to get any better until people that have this orientation talk about it openly, because otherwise it's just going to be your haters that are sort of defining the discourse.
Yeah, and you can't let the haters define that for you. You have to make a clear definition on what it is and what should be done in society about it or whatever. There's just so little effort being put into it by the people that are important that is very disheartening sometimes.
Yeah. um, I understand it being disheartening, but I try to think of it in a long-term sense that this is going to keep occurring across generations, so at some point it's got to get talked about and understood. And so
Yeah,
I'm confident in the long game that um, even if it takes a few decades, that tremendous gains can be made in understanding of autogynephilia. I mean,
I'm optimistic.
the gay rights movement succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, basically. Um,
Yeah, and we have to reach that kind of level because we're currently experiencing a lot of the same stuff that they experienced, I think, with like
yeah,
uh lack of progress and just so many things in the way on from all sources.
yeah, for sure.
Well, that's
Um,
why
uh,
I am wanting to become an endocrinologist someday.
do you think you're going to want to work with uh, transitioners specifically?
Probably mainly, but I also want to help people who are detransitioning because there is not as much help for them as there is for us. And I really don't understand why there is not. Maybe it goes against the narrative or something, but there needs to be help for them too.
Yeah,
And I want
no,
to be
that's
able to
super
help
important.
people because I know some detransitioners myself, and there are people who have AGP who are detransitioned, um, like Ray Alex Williams
Yeah,
and people like that, and they deserve to be normal, I guess, too. They deserve to have the same kind of care that we get. Well, the same level of care that we get.
right. And there needs to be more clinicians that understand how to
Yes.
deal with detransitioners. But it's since it's so
Yes.
rare, it's
It's so
gonna take
hard.
more time.
I think the younger generation, like my generation and younger, is gonna start stepping up because I have friends who are trying to get into those fields as well as me. I mean, I'm just starting, but I have friends who are looking to get into a PhD program for clinical psychology and stuff like that. And they're going to be out there doing that stuff.
Yeah,
The more younger people know about it, the more likely I think it'll happen sooner. Because a lot of the current generation of scientists are kind of set in their ways sometimes,
tell me about it. Yeah, I know. I know.
and the scientific community hates Ray Blanchard, I guess.
Yeah, you know, haters are gonna hate when someone's really successful. They're just gonna hate. And
Oh yes.
yeah, Ray Blanchard was so incredibly successful. Like to figure out the transgender typology and put male to female transgenderism on a solid theoretical foundation. And then that wasn't he's also worked in two other areas of sexology. He's done a lot of work on the fraternal birth order effect, figuring out different etiologies of male homosexuality. And then also he's
Yeah.
done a lot of work characterizing male sexual orientation with penile plethysmography. So he's He's like crushed it in like 3 different domains of sexology.
Yeah, I have some like disagreements with him on certain aspects of things, and like I think that the original typology is very much outdated and needs an update. But there's researchers that are doing more on modern research into stuff and like that. So I'm pretty pleased.
What would you like to see changed about the typology?
One of the things I think is like really horrible has been really horrible is the term of autogynephilia has become it it's become like a dirty word to say or to use. It's like the implications of it because of what it is, it makes people think of like um some sort of fetish or something like that, and or that it's evil. Well, that's like the biggest thing that I don't like is that that word was used. And I like to use autosexuality a lot more often because it sounds better.
Yeah. I think that's the one that's gonna catch on. Like, I
It doesn't sound like a taboo word, whereas autogynephilia sounds like a like it makes you want to cringe almost. I might be I'm pretty subjective about when it comes to
no,
that.
you're
I
right.
can't
The
speak for
mouthfeel
everybody.
of it is not good.
Yeah, it's just not uh it doesn't give good vibes.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
the word we have for it, so and it's pretty much like a grammatically, scientifically accurate word.
Yeah. I think I sort of anticipate that autosexual is gonna catch on, with the sort of understanding that it sort of describes autoheterosexuality, even though
Yes.
people won't say autoheterosexuality because it it's kind of a long word, and there's something about saying it that there's kind of like a little speed bump in the transition from the auto to hetero part. It like
Yeah, and it hasn't really caught on yet.
yeah, but I do think there's a lot of potential for autosexual, and also that's really good for sort of a generalized typology because it could include both like AGAMPs and AGPs as
Yes.
ultimately both autosexual.
And then, like, autogynephilia as well.
Yeah,
Like
I do think a
go ahead.
homosexual and autosexual two type typology is like sort of the clearest way to
Hmm.
articulate it.
Yeah, that could work. And, like, for me, I personally identify as autosexual, like, when I talk about things. Like, when I talk to my roommate, when I talk to my friends who know about this stuff. That's how I will identify myself. And it just feels good. It just feels correct. It feels like it's me. It feels like I finally have something that fits who I am, and I like it.
Yeah, and that's the only way it'll catch on is if people are willing to describe themselves with such terms.
It's kind of comforting. It's nice to have that comfort that I have now of like understanding myself more. It might not be the same for everybody, but I'm comforted. Whereas like a long time ago, I was very insecure and confused and just not as confident in myself as I am now. And just
Oh,
understanding the sexuality thing has just brought all these good feelings. Nothing but positives for me.
yeah, what are some of the benefits? Like, how has it helped you?
Well, it's nice to understand yourself after not understanding yourself. Um,
Yeah.
because I've been through a lot of stuff in life, and I didn't get to do things I wanted to do, and I suppressed myself. But now it feels like I'm accepting myself instead of suppressing something within because it's bad, like it's some dark secret or anything or something like that. Like people don't want to admit that they're autogynephilic because it's like bad, but really it's not bad when you figure out what the right way is to express yourself and to know yourself. And it's just become, well, it's almost like in a way it's like when someone comes out as gay. It's like in a way, oh, I'm gay. But
Yeah.
also, I think I am like analosexual. So like I'm not attracted to other people. I think Anne Lawrence talks about that.
Yeah. Have
Um,
you ever been attracted to other people?
Not really. It's more so I'm attracted to the idea of being with them. But like I can find people beautiful. It's just people don't turn me on.
Right. There's no sort of intrinsic magnetism that pulls you towards them.
No, just only like in the sense of like a having a bond with them or connecting with someone, or just the fact of imagining myself being with them in a intimate sense. Blah blah. Which was really weird figuring out. It was really weird figuring that out. But I'm glad I did, because my romantic life was very 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 awkward.
Oh, so you tried it.
Well, I dated another trans woman for about a year. We broke up, but we're still very good friends and we still live together. And we never had we never had sex or anything though, and I never wanted to. Like she never turned me on basically. Even though I loved her and I was attracted to her, she never did that for me for some reason. It was very interesting. And I really like
I
snuggling and cuddling.
right. Like the companionship aspects you like, but
Yes.
not the eroticism.
Not in the way that we had it. But then other things and other imaginary like fantasies will make me have those feelings. It's very it's very specific. I have a very specific need, I think.
Is it like the transformation stuff?
Uh, actually, I used to like be heavily into that because it was like fascinating. I was utterly fascinated by the transformation stuff. A lot of us are. I'm finding out that more and more. A lot of us have like discover it and we're fascinated by it and we don't know why. Yeah, DeviantArt is a great place to look for that stuff. uh but then it was more about being, as I grew into an adult, it was then became more about being like submissive instead
Like
of,
with a man?
and women too. Like I would have that fantasy for both genders, which is a bit interesting. I don't know if there's like some sort of meta attraction involved there, but I do heavily prefer women. I do heavily prefer women.
Yeah. Well, they're obviously very beautiful. So it I'm biased because I'm gynephilic, but still.
Yeah, I'm still
Um
trying to figure that out about myself, honestly. Like, am I bisexual? Am I meta attracted? I don't know. That's one thing I'm like looking inward at right now.
how you mentioned that you had an amazingly early onset of autogynephilia. Like
Yeah.
how what happened around what happened with the onset of puberty? How did it evolve?
Let's see. I still it persist a lot of those fantasies persisted, and then kind of around puberty was when I discovered, like when I was like 14, 15 was when I kind of discovered the transformation stuff. And then I started like projecting onto that instead of having these other dreams. And then that persisted into adulthood, and now it has eventually kind of died down, which is interesting too. And I never dated. Okay, so I never dated anybody before I was an adult. Never had crushes. Never had a crush on anybody. Never went on a date. Girls didn't generally like me. I think actually one girl liked me, but we were kids, so we don't really know how to express that. She would bully me a lot, and then she'd get really, really upset if I said something rude back or something. I don't know. I've read data on that where kids like who like each other bully each other.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it
But I
checks
never
out.
liked anybody. I never ever liked anybody, even around puberty. And I just continued to persist in those similar early fantasies that I had when I was younger. And it didn't really help that my parents didn't really teach me about sexuality. I had to learn everything from the internet. So yeah, that's what growing up in a Christian household is like sometimes.
How did when did gender dysphoria start for you?
Definitely around 17, 18, it like materialized fully. More of a later onset during puberty, I suppose. Like maybe it could have happened before, but it definitely was uh around 16. And then with further manifestation at 18.
How did your dysphoria specifically manifest? Do you have any like specific examples?
One thing was I started really hating my body hair, really hating my genitalia. I didn't want to have the genitalia I have, and I just shaved and I shaved and I shaved all the time. Really hated body hair. And I wanted to grow my hair out, but my parents didn't want me to. I did though, eventually. Before I transitioned, I grew it out. But the dysphoria was generally just about the male aspects of my body that were uh developing under puberty. It was actually, now that I think about it, it was actually quite horrifying. Puberty is a thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of auto heterosexuals really hate puberty, and understandably so.
I just didn't like being masculine. And it just felt kind of wrong to have like body hair and have the genitals I had, but I didn't really have a concept of what gender dysphoria was or that trans people even existed at the time.
When did you learn about that stuff?
Probably 18 to 20. Like specifically more so at around 20, because at 20 was when I basically socially transitioned online. And because like I couldn't bear it. Before that I actually did uh take pictures of myself with like the female filter, and it was like, oh, this looks a lot better. Why can't I look like this? And it was
Do you
always
think
me
that made your
focused too.
dysphoria worse?
Probably manifested it more, like made me more aware of like something is wrong here. So yeah, probably. I think it slightly did make my experience worse, but then was around the time where I was like, um, okay, I'll start using a girl name and girl pronouns with this friend group and see what happens. And I'd been like practicing my girl voice for years at that point because I wanted to just do it. I wanted to be able to sound like a girl just because. Maybe there was underlying subconscious reasons, but I don't know. I always loved doing voices, so I decided to do a girl voice.
Yeah.
And then I basically just socially transitioned on the internet. And my parents didn't know about it, and I was about 20.
How did that impact you psychologically to be basically trans online but cis in real life?
I have a pretty good mental fortitude, so the incongruence wasn't that bad, but it felt a lot better to just be myself with my friends. It was like a weight had been lifted, and I could like actually just be who I wanted to be. And it was kind of around that point where like the fantasy stuff kind of gradually started dissipating.
What, like the sexual fantasies started dissipating?
Yeah, like from my dreams and not as much from like my waking fantasies, and it just kind of gradually dissipated the more I had been socially uh out.
Right. There's like another outlet, so it didn't have to like
Yes.
sneak out through your dreams.
Yeah. Um and that was helpful. And so during that time I would like basically use the girl filter to look like a girl, or and then later I would buy these character wigs to cosplay characters. So that was cool. I did a cosplay of one of my favorite video game characters.
Yeah, I feel like there's quite a few AGPs that are into anime that get their start with cosplaying.
Oh yes, for sure. I cosplayed 2B from Nier Automata, a Japanese video game. Uh and then one of like the big revelations of like, oh, this fantasy stuff is still here was I tried wearing this long-haired wig and instantly became aroused.
Nice.
I don't know I don't know why it happened like that. It just happened. Like something about the feeling of having long hair just made my uh autosexuality go crazy at that moment. But now it doesn't happen anymore though, which is interesting. Maybe it's just because
Right.
of medical transition or whatever, but none of that happened anymore once I started medically transitioning. I guess you would call it the euphoria boner, but
Right. That
I didn't really feel like that at the time.
right, like it didn't feel euphoric, right? It was just like almost like a physical response of your body.
Yeah, yeah. And uh it kind of shocked me, but didn't bother me too much. And now it just doesn't happen. And I'm very grateful it doesn't happen anymore because a lot of that stuff was just very intrusive as an adult, and I didn't want it to happen. And now I feel a lot more well rounded out and balanced in terms of that. There's like more control now and more it's more mellow. Maybe it's the hormones doing that. It probably is.
Yeah, and just um more consistent exposure. I think with the sort of autosexual arousal, it seems like the first time you're exposed to a particular type of stimulus, it can have a super strong response, but then it sort of
Yes.
quickly dissipates.
Yeah. I know I did notice that. It kind of just started dissipating the more like I exposed myself to that, and then after medical transition it just went away. With there's still some effects of it, but the bothersome stuff is all gone. I'm so happy.
Right. Like
And
you can still
go
feel
ahead.
gender euphoria though, right?
I don't know. I don't know how I would tell.
Well, it's like a yeah, I was just gonna compare it to like regular relationships, but you haven't had those.
No, I
It's just like
haven't.
it's just like it's like a warm, fuzzy, pleasant feeling. It can feel like being at peace and whole. It's kind of hard to put into words.
I don't know. I can't really point out a time when I felt that. It does feel nice when I get like gendered properly. Like cuz I go out and I do a lot of stuff like with friends. I go and play Magic. I'll and I'm always going to the store to get stuff and I basically do present female in my real life. I don't have any female clothes. I just wear baggy Old Navy men's clothes. So I don't really present all that feminine in my clothing, but like I use my this is my natural voice. And it's not the best voice ever, but it it works for passing in my town. And I have a pretty feminine face. So people basically just gender me as a woman while I'm wearing a beanie and a hoodie. Uh and that feels good, but I don't like feel ecstatic about it, I guess. It's just like, "Oh, hey, I'm actually doing something here."
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
you've
that
probably
is
gotten
gender
used to it.
dysphoria. Yeah, it's been like over a year now of presenting female in real life, but I've been medically transitioning for 2 years. I kind of started male feeling, so I was like, fuck it. I'm going to present as feminine now.
When you say present as feminine, what do you mean? Because it sounds like it's not clothing.
Yeah, it was more so my hair. Cuz I grew my hair out
Did you get
and then
bangs?
we're not going to talk about that.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I did. And so I got bangs and then I started using my voice in public. So like instead of like, sounding like this, because this was the
Yeah.
voice I used for a while, I would go up to this and people would gender me as female from that and I would, be conscious of like my body language and my behavior and I would, I would try to gradually unlearn some of the male socialization, if you will. I wasn't very socialized male though. I was a very awkward kid. But people just started gendering me female, and then my body started developing with the hormones, so it just was a gradual little process. And it's been very nice.
Yeah. Do you think you're gonna stick to the transsexual path?
Yes, 100%. I have extreme genital dysphoria, like really bad. I cannot like I have no desire to have penetrative sex. Like the idea of that alone is just like ugh. And that's common for a lot of us. We just abhor the genitals we have. So I really want sex reassignment surgery.
Are you thinking of getting vulvoplasty or vaginoplasty?
Uh, Wait, what's the difference?
Well, vulvoplasty is just zero depth where there's no
Oh,
canal.
zero depth, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about that. I'm thinking about it because I have a friend who said it was really good for her. Um, but I don't know what I want to do yet. I just know I don't want the genitals. I have extreme dysphoria about them. But luckily, I don't have to use them very much.
Right. Just like to go to the bathroom for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I've never had penetrative sex. Oh, also, I still don't know if this is Well, I guess it's fine to bring up. A lot of trans people especially have very abnormal ways of masturbating. Like we don't masturbate the same way as cis people do
Right.
because of
Yeah.
aversion to our genitals, and that was something that happened to me. I have never like uh touched myself basically.
Just like
And
a
that just
Hitachi,
Hitachi.
just like a wand, like a
No,
vibrator.
nope, none of that either.
Whoa, crazy.
I don't own any any of that stuff. Um, I don't want to go into detail about that, but
Yeah, you don't have to.
I've it's very consistent with other people, including some of my friends who are like self-aware AGP. They just never did that normally, like other boys would. So that's somewhat affirming that I'm not alone.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think what you're describing is like the stronger AGPs sort of have that where they never masturbate in a normal way.
Yeah, I don't know how many people you know that I know. There's this one girl named her Twitter username is MF Troon,
Yeah,
and she was like a big reason for me like kind of like helping to understand myself. She's really cool. And she had sex reassignment surgery, and like I noticed such a vast improvement with her like behavior. Like she was observably happier and calmer, and just everything was better. And I identify with a lot of the stuff that she went through too. I think we're a little similar in certain ways like that. But it kind of the more I learn about stuff like this, the more it kind of affirms like the path forward I want to go on, which is helpful. I'm glad that it does. And for some people it might be a different path, but I know what it is for me. It's not a uniform path that is for everybody, for sure.
yeah. And I think I've noticed just a general pattern where if with the AGPs that have less attraction to other people, where they're analoerotic, they tend to have worse dysphoria, and that's sort of intuitively obvious to me because
Yeah.
they wouldn't have any other outlet for their gynephilia, so to speak. So,
Hmm.
like,
That does make sense.
yeah,
Just one friend I have, she really has like a meta attraction to men. So like she likes to think about being a guy's wife.
yeah,
And sometimes I think about that too, and it's like really, really nice. But it's not like my primary or only thing that I think about. And
right,
it's just like we're not attracted to other people like that. We're just attracted to the idea of being with those people in a certain way.
yeah, and it'll depend a lot on the individual circumstance
Yes.
about
Yes,
whether
yes, yes,
that
yes.
can sustain a relationship or not.
Yeah, it needs to be a very picky type of relationship. You need to find the right person. Like if you're looking for a full partnership like that. And some people just have kind of casual sex and stuff, and that can work. I was in a polyamorous relationship, and that worked out. Well, like it worked out for me in terms of my like emotional needs.
Yeah, it's very common for AGPs to be doing polyamory.
Yes, or just like casual sex.
Yeah,
But yeah, for me, I've never had any casual sex, so I can't really say anything on that. I'm a little bit weird in that aspect. I'm very socially stunted in certain ways that other people may not be. I'm very outgoing, very friendly to people who are nice, uh, and I do well in social situations, but just like that relationship aspect, I've just never had any experience with. First date was last year.
Yeah. How did that go?
Oh, it was good. She seduced me, and then we dated for a year. That's the girl I was talking about, and now we're just
Oh
best
yeah.
friends. It's nice to like break up and be able to be best friends still.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, she doesn't believe in all the AGP stuff at all, and she hates when I try to talk about it.
Right. It can be a stumbling block to connection with other trans women to want to talk
Yeah,
about that.
she doesn't like it at all. So I respect her boundaries on that. And she's also married to a cis woman. I was the wedding photographer. So
Oh,
that's interesting too.
sounds like a very West Coast thing.
I live in Colorado, so very I don't no, this is middle America. Are we Midwest? I don't even know.
It-
Whatever. Anyway,
How how do you feel about the transgender movement?
has pros and cons, honestly. There'd have to be you have to be like more specific, I guess.
Um, yeah, that was very broad.
Yeah.
Um, I guess like where do you see it going right? Like how do you see its political trajectory unfolding?
I think we have kind of a fork in the road right now. Like I think on one side, well, not there's actually like kind of more than two. There's like people who want to be more rational, and they want to compromise. There's people who want no compromises at all, and then there's kind of like a mix between the two, I guess. And I don't know. I just don't have any faith in. I just don't have any faith in like our current uh like our current most popular voices, I guess, to like get us what we need. And like I feel like that people like me are going to have to start standing up and speaking out for what we believe we need, because I don't think I don't think any of these people are going to be all too helpful. I'm a little odd on my perspective on that, but I am optimistic because we do have protections here in the States. Uh, some people have more protections in other countries or less protections, but we have protections here, and if things get bad, we can come together and we can probably get out. But that would have to go through Congress and everything first, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're in a blue state here, you're pretty safe. Um, the movement isn't gonna cause too much issues, but what's happened with the movement is it's caused a lot of people to shift to be more radically right, I think. And because I think we've seen this throughout history too. Um, like whenever there's like a movement like this, it causes some moderates to shift to one side or the other. And there's a dangerous shift to people wanting to remove our medical protections. And that's what I'm most concerned about. But it doesn't seem to be what a lot of people are most concerned about.
Right. Like the medical stuff is your priority.
Yeah, like that's like my top priority. it's not about, like, for me, it's not about what bathroom I can use, or I don't even use a changing room, so whatever. It's about having access to my medical treatment and having access to, like, changing my ID and stuff like that without some sort of restriction. And I sometimes feel very alone in thinking about that, because you have this the big argument going on about bathrooms, and it's like, well, bathrooms aren't medical care, and that they're not as important as medical care to me anyway. My
Yeah.
medical care is imperative, or I will go crazy. My mental health will plummet, and I will, and many others will experience suffering if we do not do something to make sure our medical care is protected. It's always just like, no, ban this, or no, this is perfectly evidenced, when in reality, we just need more research.
Yeah. I think politically, um, it seems to me like the biggest priority is to have anti-discrimination ordinances in terms of employment and housing, and then
Yes,
also, at least for adults, um, that medical transition is an
yes,
option.
because we do know that from, like, the science, that the efficacy for adults is very solid. We just don't have that kind of research for children yet, and people have been acting as if we do. So now everybody wants to ban it.
Yeah, I think that was a big overstep to push for transitioning kids, and then also the sports thing. I think both those in combination are causing most of the backlash.
Yeah, because of one, the evidence is not widely high quality for kids, and two, like the sports thing, it extremely varies by someone who's wanting to be in sports after like a month on hormones or something, or not even taking hormones, versus maybe someone who had their puberty suppressed, so they never went through puberty and wants to do sports, or never went through a male puberty and they want to do sports. There's so much uh nuance involved in that, but then people are like, no, we should let everybody play sports just because they want to, even though there are clear biological differences that have not been solved for yet.
Yeah, and just the optics, like, people can see
Yeah,
pictures and
optics
video
too.
of it, and it's just very
Yeah,
tangible.
yeah, it's we got too many Hans out there.
Yeah, I mean,
um
I'm 6'4", so, like, I really intuitively
Dang.
understand the unfairness of it in terms of, like, trans women and women's sports. Because, like, if I were to go on hormones, there's nothing that could change the fact that I would have an amazing skeleton compared to my competitors.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you again?
37.
Ah, so, like, yeah, and your skeleton is, like, fully developed by now.
It's donezo. It's over. Yeah, as a 4chaner might say.
It's Jover.
Yeah.
And yeah, the sports thing, people are too hardline on it on the pro trans side, I think. I think people need to understand there are certain biological differences, but a lot of um the activists don't seem to understand those, like, that some of these people have these biological differences and that the optics are not very good.
Right. Or even that it's just, in addition to that, that it's not really the most important thing.
Yeah, like, it's, to me, it's just not the most important thing in the world. To me, the most important thing is, well, like you said, I forgot to mention just discrimination laws and stuff. Like, I'm safe in a blue state, but someone in a red state might not be safe, you know? And people aren't really talking about that as much as I want them to.
Yeah. I think there's a big sorting thing happening where uh progressives are moving to blue states and conservatives are moving to red states, and it's the states themselves are becoming more polarized.
Yeah, I think that
So,
is happening.
yeah, like I know there's where I live in Portland, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of trans people that live here that specifically moved here from red states just because they knew they could get healthcare here and they could transition and they wouldn't be discriminated against in the
It
same
was
way.
kind of a more progressive area.
Yeah.
Well, that is good for them, I suppose. But some people, they can't really move and stuff like that. I probably can, so I'm lucky. But I know people who cannot do that, and they're kind of stuck. And I'm just not confident in our current movement and its ability, but I'm confident in us as individuals.
Yeah. I I think the autogynephilic transsexual population is disproportionately high IQ, and like and there's some data to back that up.
Yeah, there's a little bit. I don't know what my IQ is, so I can't speak to that.
But yeah, there's a lot of basically what might be called elite human capital. A lot of AGPs belong to that in terms of their cognitive ability, and there's a lot of potential for them to be influential. And I think that's part of why the trans movement has been so successful because of the immense talent among the people. And
Yeah,
if they could, it's a lot to ask, but if they could moderate the excesses, um, you know, if they could
hmm,
accept that there will be some places where some instances in which they cannot sort of be included as their target gender, um, like the sports thing we are mentioning, like I think it could go a long way towards improving the movement's
could be.
outcomes.
There's just like a lot of instances where you're not going to be able to do certain things, and that's just a reality.
Yeah, it's trade-offs. That's life.
Might suck, but if we have to deal with it somehow, and that's when you have to make a compromise. And like me, I'm not even comfortable using the women's bathroom all the time because
What sort of factors make you feel like if you use it sometimes, like what sort of like makes you feel comfortable using it sometimes and then not others?
sometimes it feels safer in certain areas, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, I don't want to make someone freak out in there. I don't want to bother someone by doing that. So I like to opt and use the gender neutral bathrooms because to me those are more safe. Like I don't want to be in one of those videos, you know?
Yeah.
That's like a fear. That's such a fear that
To be
me
in
and
one
other
of the
people
AGP
have.
hate compilations.
Yeah, or something like that. Uh and then it's partially also lack of confidence in my own like appearance, but I'll unpack that later. I deal with that.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's still a lot of potential in terms of like you've just been doing hormones and haven't done FFS, for
No,
example.
yeah. And like I still to like a general person, I will still they'll still identify me as female without me having to like really do anything. So that's nice.
Right. They'll at least see you as like a trans woman.
Yeah. And like the sometimes people are overly supportive liberals about it, so that's a little uncomfy, but they have a good heart.
Right. I've encountered that sometimes too, and it's like I've seen trans people online complaining about the overly supportive liberal thing, but it's like I think people should just be happy that they're
Sometimes
being
they're
nice to you instead
nice.
of mean.
I get asked for my pronouns by people who are clearly more progressive, and that's okay. But
It's
yeah, we gotta make compromises on certain stuff. Like me, I am totally out of shape, so I don't plan on doing any sports.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised you said you play Magic the Gathering, right?
Yeah. I do have an e-bike and I ride that around, but no, sports aren't of interest to me. That and I've been pretty hospitalized over the past year, so my body is just very out of it.
Is it from were you hospitalized from unrelated things?
Yeah, well, potentially not unrelated because I was born with a third kidney.
Whoa. I didn't know that
So,
was a thing.
yeah, I was born with a third kidney, and it was very inflated. So I almost died last November in a scooter accident because it ruptured like a balloon.
Oh, I had a scooter
And
accident this past year.
no,
Yeah, there
the
was a couch in the
handlebars.
road that I didn't expect.
What the heck?
I
I just
know.
had a bump. Damn. I'm
Yeah.
glad you weren't seriously hurt. Jeez.
Yeah.
Uh, because the
So your
handlebars went right
kidney
into my
blew up?
abdomen. Yeah, basically. The handlebars went into my abdomen, and it basically ruptured the kidney. But luckily, still have two kidneys. They removed it now, so I don't have to worry about that. But that's also interesting because I have gender dysphoria, I have a third kidney, I have a lazy eye, and I'm missing one of my adult teeth. I still have a baby tooth. So I'm kind of wondering, is it all connected somehow?
Something went off track in the development, at least.
And that's kind of also what makes me not want to save my sperm or anything like that because I don't want to pass any of that on. That just seems irresponsible.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to know how much of that is genetic and or just due to other factors, but I generally lean towards the genes explain most differences between people.
Yeah, and I study biology in college, so that's a big thing for me. I kind of apply some of my biology knowledge to my AGP knowledge, I like to think. Like,
Right.
I wonder if certain genetic factors could have led to this in myself. I'm a
Do you
very big biology nerd. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say related to biology, do you feel like knowing about biology has made you less social constructionist than other people?
Yes. Um, I think gender roles are a social construct, like how we act out gender roles in society, but certain other stuff like our literal sexual dimorphism is not a social construct, excuse me. Um and certain aspects of like our self perception isn't a social construct, which is technically why like gender dysphoria is a thing because it's not a social construct. But there can also be social forms of gender dysphoria.
Right. Yeah. No, the interpersonal gender dysphoria is real.
And I think part of that is why most detransitioners are natal females because of like social aspects of gender dysphoria instead of
Right.
biological ones. Like with biological ones, for people like me, that's what makes our dysphoria so intense.
Like the anatomic ones.
Yes, I think I am anatomic, very much so.
Yeah. I agree that there's that general pattern of I would say that AAPs are they experience social dysphoria more often and anatomic less, whereas the AGPs in comparison have more anatomic dysphoria and less social dysphoria, just like as a general rule.
Yeah, it's different for everybody, but it fits for me for sure. But learning about biology kind of helped expand my knowledge of transition in general too. So
In what
now it
ways?
is uh well, now it is because of what I know about biology that I believe that we can change sex. But that's not a belief shared by a lot of people. And it's very much based on my own subjective understanding of biology.
What's your strongest argument for that?
Uh Change of phenotype basically. You've probably heard that on Twitter a bunch from other people. I don't know. What's her name? Invisible Entity talks about that a lot. Um but it's just the mere fact of how awesome biology is that it allows these exogenous hormones to alter how our genes express themselves. Like it's not altering your code, it's not altering your chromosomes or your DNA strings, but it's altering your how those things are expressing themselves and developing tissue, developing proteins, all like all of the synthesis going on in your body with cell interaction. And I look at all of that vast amount of biological change and think, well, how can you not define this as a change of sex? And it's not something that I think the wider scientific community shares and that some other people share, but it's just my interpretation of how biology works in people. Because we are a dimorphic species, but we can alter so many things about ourselves to become more like the opposite. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Never
think it's
ceases to
cool
amaze me.
that it's an option for sure, that transsexualism exists. Um, I I feel like no matter how advanced it gets, though, there's some people that they'll just shift the goalposts and they'll just be suffering no matter what.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of observable from history and stuff like that. That'll always happen in some form. Uh but to me, chromosomes, schmomosomes. I don't care about chromosomes. I don't care about the fact that I'll always have a Y chromosome. Just doesn't matter to me. My particular type of dysphoria is just about my phenotype. And that's the biggest thing I probably care about in myself.
Do do you think there are more than two types of trans?
Probably. Uh, I wouldn't know what to call them, but I think there's more of a spectrum because sexuality is more of a spectrum. And a lot of uh, what we know about gender dysphoria and stuff is linked to sexuality. So there's just more of a spectrum of what kind of a trans person someone is because of the spectrum of sexuality
Yeah.
and
I
how they
I
experience
think
it.
that's true for within the AGP type, or within the
Mm,
autosexual type broadly, that there's a lot of diversity within that type.
yes. And sometimes I feel like the HSTS types are very few, and some people who claim they are HSTS are not HSTS.
Yeah, most of them.
And many of them get very, very mad when I say this.
Right. Whereas if they were actually HSTS, they wouldn't. I don't think they would actually care that much. They'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, you know, like they wouldn't feel a strong need to convince you.
Yeah, and just the way that certain people who claim to be HSTS treat people who are AGP is very sus.
Right.
Because it's like
Yeah.
they view themselves as the normal ones, and like anybody who's not like them is a perverted freak. Anybody who's not like them is a man. If you're a trans lesbian, you're not a trans woman, you're a man. And uh to me that's kind of just like, is that, are you trying to convince me or are you trying to convince yourself?
It's usually the latter one. Yeah.
Like sorry, I just got scared by something. Pardon me. Uh oh shit. It's I was in this server uh owned by um Anna. Her username is
Uh-huh.
like truthful TS. I think you
Yeah.
know. Were you in that? I don't remember.
I know Anna.
But one of the moderators would keep kicking me out because I kept on changing my name to what I wanted my name to be. And then she got really mad because I said I could tell when people had voice trained, and also got really mad that I thought she was AGP.
Yeah, I think in due time she'll come around to the AGP explanation, but we'll see.
This was a moderator named TT.
Oh, yeah, I don't know that much about that person, but I don't really think if there's trans women spending any time on Discord,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. If you're a Discord mod, you are not HSTS.
right, yeah. And I know that people that critique the typology might think that that's superficial to say that, but it's like once you understand the phenotype, it's like the HSTS are not gonna be on Discord.
Nope. And they're generally just like living their life now. Like
Yeah,
they transition, they integrate and assimilate, basically.
yeah, and they're very rare. Like I usually for like the way that you can calculate how many transsexuals are like AGP, it just gives you the lower estimate, which is as far as I can calculate, it's at least 80%. But
Yeah, I
if
saw
I
your
were to
posts about that.
yeah, if I were to guess like what the actual percent is, it's probably somewhere between 95 to 98 would be my guess.
Hmm.
So it's
That's
just like
something I want to learn more about as
yeah,
I
but
go further in school.
yeah, it's still not clear though how to neatly separate out the meta attracted AGPs from the HSTS. Um,
Yeah, it's partially why I don't like a dichotomy.
yeah. Well, I it'd be nice if the idea that AGP is true trans started to catch on a little more.
Well, I don't think it will. I
I
don't
mean,
think it's gonna happen.
I I know it
I
might
think it's
not
true,
catch
but
on,
yeah.
but historically those were the first transsexuals and they're the
Oh yeah?
ones yeah. Yeah.
Like
Um
who?
the ones from Hirschfeld's time,
Oh, from
Dora
Herschel.
Richter's might have been the first one. I think Ellie, the one that the movie was made about, the Danish girl,
Lily Abe?
Lily
Abe?
Elb,
Ibe? Elb? I don't know how
something
to
like
pronounce it.
that. Yeah, like those are both autogynephilic
Oh,
etiology.
yeah, because they were with women. And
Yeah,
like there's that one who was Christine Jorgensen, who
right.
was like um like the first notable like military trans woman. Now we have like more people who are like that. Um and so yeah, they were like the first like notable trans people in media and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're all
So
AGPs.
yeah, people don't understand that.
So yeah, I just think like people like to think that HSTS is true trans, but I think if we're basing trans not on how much you're naturally like the other sex, but based on how much you suffer or want, like how much you want to be the other sex, I
Yeah.
think that the autosexual type is arguably a stronger candidate for true trans.
And also certain stuff can like certain gendered similarities can be confounded for by sexuality. Uh because of like, you know how people often like cite those studies where it's like, we scanned the brains of these people and these trans women were more like cis women. But in reality, it's not because of their being them being trans women. It's because of them including um trans women uh who like men.
Right. It's just picking up on sexual orientation.
Yeah, and like a lot of gay men can be more effeminate. And like that gives that goes to the idea of like some men are so gay they become women. But I don't think that's too much to do with like the typology per se.
Yeah, but I think it's why people intuitively understand the homosexual type. Like whenever I
Yes.
explain the typology to people, I they don't ask they don't need any further explanation for the homosexual type.
Yeah.
It just makes
Ooh,
sense
that's a
to
good
them.
point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't
Whereas
really think of that.
the autosexual type, they haven't even heard of it, so it's harder for them to wrap their head around. But they've seen masculine lesbians and effeminate gay men, and they could sort of see like, okay, some of them might want to transition.
Yeah. That's a good way of that's very intelligent. And I know people who still like, I don't know, like identify as like being a butch lesbian, but they take testosterone.
Right. Yeah. And I lean towards thinking they're mostly autoandrophiles with meta attraction, but there's still not good data on it to
Oh yeah. There will be though, I
there will be
believe.
eventually, but like so far it's not commonplace in transgender research to even ask about cross-gender eroticism. And so it's
Hmm.
they're not even measuring the basic sort of thing that you'd measure to try to figure out the type what type of trans you're dealing with.
Did it used to be? Did they used to
Um
measure for cross eroticism like that?
uh it was more common. Yeah, but I don't even know if it would be fair to say it was the norm, but it happened more often. Like Blanchard's research did it. Um, Lawrence did it in some of her
Yes.
studies.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think like uh uh Bailey did a little bit of that too, unless I'm wrong.
yeah, I know that he was co-author on an FTM typology study. Um, I don't know what they asked about cross-gender eroticism though, or at least
Hmm.
I can't recall them reporting it. But um, yeah, I think it should be like since it seems that most transsexuals are of autosexual ideology, I think it should be just standard in transgender research to include like at minimum one question that measures cross-gender eroticism, but realistically there should be scales of many
Hmm.
questions.
Yeah, like what are you on the Kinsey scale?
Right. Like
I mean,
are you like a Kinsey 6 on the AGP scale or something like that?
I don't even know what I am, so
I
mm,
mean, from what you've described, if there was an analogous AGP scale with scored the same as the Kinsey, where the bigger number was more AGP, you sound like a 5 or a 6. Just
yeah.
because of the early onset paired with the analoeroticism,
Hmm.
it it sort of like suggests to me that the inversion is quite strong and there's not much allosexuality.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I've tried.
Yeah. I know it's been Kevin Sue and his longitudinal AGP study, he has a question in there that sort of has the autosexual allosexual version of a Kinsey scale, and it'll be interesting to see how that correlates with various outcomes. I would expect it to be a significant correlation with gender dysphoria.
I might need to read that. I don't know if I've read that.
It's not published yet, but the data's collected.
Ooh, I can't wait. I love Kevin Sue.
Yeah, I'm so glad that he's doing AGP research because
Yes. He's so
there's
nice too.
yeah, he's really nice. I like Kevin, and
He
anyone who's
followed me
listening to
back.
this should like Kevin too because Kevin's great.
He followed me back on Twitter, and that made my day. That made my day.
Nice.
But I think I posted something that made Michael Bailey mad because he blocked me. I was
What'd you
like,
post?
I don't know. I was memeing in his replies, and I think he blocked me because of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like with people like Blanchard and Bailey, like since they've been exposed to so much like transsexuals being so rude and harassing and annoying to them, it's like you kind of got to be careful
Yeah,
because
because
they're gonna have a quick trigger finger.
oh yeah, because like I think it was on his post where he was like, "Hey, all you AGP nerds." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but this sounds just like, oh, huh."
Oh, are you comparing it to like the "How do you do, fellow kids" sort of thing?
Yeah, like the "How do you do, fellow kids?"
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
And
that
like I was
tweet
like,
did have that vibe.
I was just like, "I'm so sorry. I couldn't help but think of this." And I think he blocked me because of that. I'm so
Uh,
sad.
it's too
I
bad.
follow him on
Maybe.
my alt account though.
Oh, nice.
I'll I'll maybe get him see if I can get him to unblock me, but
Yeah, maybe at some point in the
I'm not
future you
too
can
worried
ask.
about it. I'm not too worried about it right now.
Yeah.
I do love his research.
Yeah.
And
No,
but
it's
yeah, these guys are the future, I think. Cuz like, Blanchard isn't doing any more research on this, and these guys are. And like Kevin
yeah,
Sue is young,
right. Yeah.
and we're getting more like um have you ever heard of a girl named Gammy?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, okay, so you know Gammy. Yeah, and she is gonna do great things. Oh, same with Dakota probably.
Yeah, I really hope Dakota gets into it because she's particularly reasonable.
She is so smart. And
Yeah.
like and people like those two, they kind of make me uh want to get smarter too and just learn more and do better in school. And I am gonna. Except for
Yeah.
me, it's not psychology stuff or sexology stuff. It's more about the endocrinology is what interests me the most, but I'll probably do some psych stuff.
Psych is a little easier, I would think, just in terms of how much you have to learn to get started at it.
Yeah. Uh, but I think more of us need to be doing that sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
We kind of just have a lot of trans people not in the scientific field like that, and they're not, and then like we're letting people who aren't trans kind of lead the way in terms of research and everything like that. And I think we need to be more involved.
Yeah. I think it's good to play a role. Um, but it's also important to have outsiders that don't have that particular
Yes,
psychological predisposition because it does introduce its own biases.
that is true. That is true. People could probably make those claims about like Anne Lawrence or something like, oh, She is AGP, so that means she can't be trusted. That means all of her research is biased because she's AGP, but I don't believe that in terms of Aunt Lawrence. But it
Right.
can happen. It can happen.
It can. Yeah, but Anne Lawrence has demonstrated that she can say what she believes is true even though it makes people mad at her.
Yeah. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
And then you're out here doing interviews with people. Just random trans people and getting their experiences. So that's reaching an audience. And
Yeah, I think all of us have a role to play.
yeah. This has made me very hopeful tonight. I needed that. I've been feeling a little down the past week or so. I needed
Because of
some.
trans stuff or other things?
No, I've just been depressed. Just personal stuff going on.
It's also depression season.
Yeah, that's true. It's I'm getting to the end of my college semester, and I just had a lot of stuff go on this semester, so wasn't the best first semester of college ever. But next semester will be better. Just having all this hospital time has really affected me.
Yeah, are you still an undergrad?
Yeah, I don't have any degree. I'm going for an associate's degree right now.
Okay.
I'm baby. I'm very baby. But I haven't been to school in like 8 years. I graduated 8 years ago. So, and I've done no school since then, so it's been a little rough.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I kind of wish some part of me wishes I waited to go to college so that I would have picked a major that was better instead of what I picked.
Oh, what'd you pick?
Physics and mechanical engineering.
Hmm, that's interesting.
But the thing is, it's not interesting to me anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
you've
if I could
now.
do it over again, I would do programming just for the money.
Ooh,
Because then you can just do anything if you have money, and also if you know how to write programs and do statistical analyses, you can do research.
typical AGP being a programmer.
Yeah,
I dabbled in a bit of that myself. But ooh, yeah, one thing I'm very interested to think about is like what role like an endocrinologist could have in terms of uh AGP stuff.
like how do you think it would help to understand the AGP for an endocrinologist?
I haven't formulated that yet, but it might help to like maybe identify people who had been misdiagnosed. I don't know. Or like people who don't need to medically transition because those people exist, but they could get referred to you. I don't know.
Right.
I haven't thought
Yeah.
about it too much, but also there's the fact that being like a practitioner that like understands your patient on that level can be helpful in like developing that kind of patient and doctor relationship or just doing research. Like when you're researching something and you understand like some of the concepts related to it, it could make something a lot like easier to interpret and to write down.
Right. I mean, I feel that way about AGP where I can hear like a trans person describe their experience, and the things they say, they have no idea that it has significance, but I see significance in
Yep.
a lot of the things they say in terms of like indicating how strong their their auto versus allo is, or like which subtypes they have, things like
You
that.
already noticed that with me, I think. You already made a couple of comments
Yeah.
like that.
I mean,
I
you
do
also
appreciate
said you
it.
were analoerotic, which is you're already using the
Yeah, I kind of have
technical
I
term.
kind of have a self-awareness of that based on, and I only just recently became like kind of aware of that. And it's like I didn't want it to be true either, but it is.
Yeah. And I find that accepting true things can really reduce a lot of inner tension.
Truth nuke.
Yeah.
No, sometimes I just say c'est la vie. Some things are just the way they are, and I can't do anything about them, and it's okay if I embrace them.
Um,
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, is there anything like for the AGPs listening to this, what would you want them to know?
Well, I know a lot of us have like shame about it or feel like we're wrong. I felt like I was wrong for a long time. I felt like just because I had this sexuality, I was just so different from like all the other teenagers and stuff. And but what I think people that are, feeling bad about that sort of thing should realize is that it's not a bad thing to have this difference of sexuality. It's very normal for us to have this, I guess. Like, you can define normal however you want, but in people like us, this is just like a normal thing that happens to us. And it doesn't mean we're wrong. It doesn't mean we're broken. And we can have normal relationships even if we have this thing. Because it's just a variation of sexuality. And yeah, I'm just very optimistic, and learning about everything about this has made me so much more comfortable with myself as a person and in seeking relationships. And I just hope that that can happen for more people.
Yeah. I think that's
Ooh,
a
just jittered.
I think
Whew.
that's a good hopeful note to end on. Is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up recording?
Oh, let's see. Well, I have a lot of disagreements with people. I probably have disagreements with you, but you know, we can everybody can have a good conversation about those things and be nice to each other and respect each other. And I'm glad that I got to come here today.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It was pretty laid back, and um
I'll find
thanks for
something
taking
to
the
argue
time.
with you about. I'll find something.
We'll argue
You
about stuff.
you mark my words.
Yeah.
I like to argue. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Just know that when we disagree, it's not personal. I just think whatever you're saying is not
Yeah.
factual.
Oh, I love the way you said that. That was that was nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time. And I'm going to hit end recording right now.
All right.